Welcome to Type C Tech Reviews. Today we're going to be doing a review of the Acer Nitro V16. If at any point during the video you want to check out this exact same gaming laptop, there's Amazon links below for the US, UK, Canada, and international links, but let's talk about it. We got a lot to unpack today. Build quality here uses primarily plastic, but it does feel well put together and quite durable. The hinge here is also well done for the price point. While it doesn't feel like a high-end laptop, we really can't expect that at this price point. The good part here with the hinge though is that they nailed it with the opening force, so you can actually just use one hand to easily open up that laptop lid without like the bottom like moving or wobbling around in a strange way. So that is good. It also has quite a decent fully opened angle. So if you wanted to use this with an angled laptop stand with a dedicated mouse and keyboard, this would be great for that and have more than enough tilt to accommodate even a very angled laptop stand. So that's great. Weight here is pretty average at about 5.5 pounds, pretty normal. The ports here include two USB Type A 3.2s, one USB Type-C, an HDMI 2.1, an RJ45 gigabit Ethernet port, and then lastly, not really a port, but a Kensington lock. I do wish this had a few more Type A's, however, it does have that Type-C, so we could always extend that plugging in a dongle. But again, only two USB Type A's. I would like to see more. It's pretty normal in this price point, but still. For the specs of this beast, there's a few different variations of it, so let's go over that. Firstly, you can either get a RTX 4060 or 4050 in this. The one that I have is using the 8GB RTX 4060. Then on the 4060 model, this uses the Ryzen 7 8845HS CPU, which is awesome, with 32GB of RAM and SSD only storage, which is great for those faster boot ups and faster boot ups in game, not just Windows. Now, if you get the 4050 model, this will come with the 8645HS processor, and in most variants, 16GB of RAM. But there's a little caution buyer's guide style thing. The 4050 with the 8645HS currently on Acer's website, again 16GB of RAM, is listed for $999.99, so $1,000. The 4060 variant with the 8845HS with 16GB of RAM again is listed on Acer's website for $1,099.99. Now, the links below that I have are Amazon, like I said at the beginning of the video, but with that link directly from Acer, it's Acer's listing. This uses the 4060, the 8845HS, but it has 32GB of RAM for $1,099, at least at the time of filming. So it is the same price on Acer's website, but this has 32GB of RAM for the same price. So I'd caution you to not buy it directly from Acer's website, but buy it directly from Acer on Amazon. But enough of that, let's talk performance in game. Black Ops 6 with graphics maxed out in extreme actually did surprisingly well, hitting lows in the mid 60 FPS region, with highs being in the mid to upper 90s. But most of the time, the average was comfortably between 75 and 85 FPS. Now, dropping the graphical settings down to the balanced mode brought the average up to between 100 and 120 FPS, very rarely ever dipping below 100 FPS. Also keep in mind here, long gaming sessions did not change these FPS numbers, never did it thermal throttle, and not even just not that, but it never even pushed the fans even close to their maximum RPM. This is pretty awesome. You'll see kind of a pattern with this laptop there. It's a good thing. Now in Forza Horizon 5, a more graphically intensive game to run, we not only set the overall graphics setting to the highest setting of extreme, but we also turned up all the remaining settings to the max, like light reflection quality, as well as ray tracing all the way up to really make this machine work. Even with those settings, this easily stayed above 60 FPS the entire time, with an average between 68 to 71 FPS. Lowering the graphics settings to high, this brought the average between 130 and 140 FPS, never really going below 120 ever. Now me personally for Forza, this is pretty much where I'd keep my settings. It's a really good balance of image quality, but also very high refresh rate into the 140s in terms of FPS. Very solid performance, really solid performance. And again, that's with full resolution, 1920 by 1200, which is just 1080p, but a little bit taller. All right, but now for an older game, Battlefield 1. This is a game I cannot stop playing. It still stands up today and honestly graphically looks a lot better than a lot of new titles. However, even with the age, it's still fairly a graphically intensive game. Now, this had a larger average range, primarily between 120 and 130 FPS, but depending on maps and the area of the maps, it dipped down to the high 100s and up to the full 165 FPS, maxing out that panel's refresh rate. And that was on max everything ultra, and that is really solid performance. I would just leave it in ultra and play that all the time. Obviously, you could drop a few little settings and probably get 165 FPS all day long in Battlefield 1, but great performance. And again, when testing this, this was in hotter rooms and this was long gaming sessions, playing multiple different games for hours, and we never really saw fans even really escalating at all. It would stay at a very good level. So let's talk about that. Cooling. Cooling here is one of the biggest highlights of this laptop. If you're not gaming, if you're just doing productivity, the fans are not always on. Or if they're on, I literally could not notice it because it's that quiet. But literally it is under 30 decibels, so it's essentially whisper quiet. Like you literally couldn't even hear it. Quieter than a whisper. Then the fans will kind of throttle up every now and then, cool it, and then bring them back to essentially zero or audibly zero. Now, when not doing productivity, again, even when pushing this for hours on end, temps stayed nice and icy, and the fans never spooled up even close to all the way. Now, you can use the built-in Nitro software to set the fan speed manually, and this can really do a great job of cooling. So if for some reason, maybe you were playing outside in the summer heat or something like that, you could set them manually. When you do set the fans manually all the way up, it's crazy just how much cooling this thing is capable of. It's quite impressive. But as well, how did the WASD tests go? And that's my personal test where your hands are on the WASD keys while you're gaming. Is it too hot? Is it too warm on your hands? And do you get all sweaty? This one was surprisingly good. The entire keyboard area stayed very, very cool. Really, the only part of the top of the laptop that even had any heat was kind of in the top middle chin, just above the keyboard. That's really the only place heat was, at least on the top of that deck, which is a really good thing. Even if you're gonna game and then switch between typing, it's gonna be very, very cool. No discomfort at all. Gets a full A+, full pass. All right, now the screen. How is the panel? Well, firstly, it is an IPS panel with a 1920 by 1200 resolution. This is just a 1080p resolution that's slightly taller. The idea behind this, I think, is to give space for kind of like your icon bar in a laptop, but also allow you to have 16 by 9 on the screen with that bar. It's a great thing. It makes this feel a little bit more premium, and it doesn't really take any more processing power in game. Now, obviously this hits 165 Hertz, which is great, and the panel has a matte finish, but it really doesn't give any sort of dirty screen effect, or at least that intensely. Sometimes matte finishes can give a oily look to the screen, kind of degrade picture quality, but this one is quite thin. It is nice. Brightness here hits about 300 nits, which is decent, pretty average. For ghosting on this panel, there is an overdrive setting in the Nitro software, but after testing this, I literally could see no visual difference. I kept going back and forth. I literally saw nothing, so I don't know. Now, for viewing angles, obviously this is good because it's an IPS panel, but the colors, while they're better than obviously a VA panel for a laptop, the colors here just aren't super accurate at all. They're not crazy, crazy, crazy off. It just seems to be not quite as saturated, and definitely the accuracy isn't there. Now, another thing to mention is the panel does have some minor scan lines. You can really only pick these up if it's in solid blue or solid green areas. That's really where I noticed them. But from a typical viewing distance for a laptop, as well as when you're in game, I literally never noticed these at all, so it's really only we're going to be doing productivity and things like that. That could be a quality control issue, I'm not sure, but again, I can only test what's on my laptop, and well, that's what it has. Overall, this screen here isn't offensive or bad, it's just not the highlight of the laptop either. This laptop focuses on performance and cooling at a good price, and they just went with an average screen. But moving on to fan noise, I tested this pretty extensively and it's great. This is one of my favorite parts of this laptop. With no load in the quiet and balanced modes, it's so quiet it's almost imperceivable. Under 30 decibels, you literally cannot hear it. I then set this to custom to set both the GPU and CPU fans to about 30%, and that came in at about 34 to 35 decibels, which is very, very good. At 50%, this was about 37 decibels, and at full 100%, this came in at between 51 and 52 decibels. However, again, it literally never maxes out. So to test that, I went in-game, and after playing Black Ops 6 for a substantial amount of time, I tested the fan noise. Again, left everything in auto, so just let the laptop do what it wants to do. And this came in at about 40 to 41 decibels, which is very, very good. Even in-game, it's not that loud, really quite impressive. But let's talk keyboard and trackpad here. Keyboard here is good. It does a good job of feeling tactile, but obviously don't expect anything super premium. The RGB, well, is not RGB. It's just one color, which is orange, but you can turn it off or way down if you'd like. The trackpad doesn't feel like anything special, but it also doesn't have any issues with it. It was very accurate, and I really had no problems with tracking during the whole time testing this, which I did take a lot longer than I expected because of other projects we were working on, but that is neither here nor there. The two things I don't like about the trackpad, besides it being, just not super premium, I'm not gonna ask for glass or everything, but the weight of the left and right physical clicks, not the tap clicks, are just a little bit too heavy and they have too much travel. Those are really my big complaints, but again, for the price, I don't think I would ever complain. All right, for the webcam and mic, well, take a look and listen. This is the Nitro V16's webcam and mic. It's a little bit of an echoey room, so we'll see how it sounds, but overall, honestly, not too bad at all. There it is. All right, but let's talk battery life. This uses a 56 watt-hour battery, which is definitely not huge. For doing productivity tasks on the battery power, the good part is that the fans will only kick on for a few seconds here and there, and then completely turn off, which does help with that battery life, as well as just quality of life, right? Now, while just doing productivity, I was able to get between 4 and 5 hours of usage. But if you're wanting to game on battery, well, it's gonna drain pretty dang quick. Obviously, most of us are not gonna wanna game on battery and don't expect that at this price point. And I think 98% of us are gonna prefer gaming while being plugged in anyway, to obviously have full advantage of everything, but you definitely can do it. It's just gonna drain super fast. But with that, let's jump to the most important section of the video, price and value, and should you buy this? All right, now, if you get it on Amazon rather than Acer's site, you can get this for $1,099, at least at the time of filming, but that is for the RTX 4060 variant and the Ryzen 7 8845HS. Not just that, but buying it on Amazon gets you an upgrade from 16 on the Acer store to 32 gigabytes of RAM. You also get all SSDs, and you can choose between a 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte, and I think it goes up to 4 terabyte SSD, as well as you can choose other memory options. You go up to 64 gigabytes of memory, but I do think that's overkill. And overall, I think it's a great price if you're putting a big priority on value and performance, or should I say value performance, because that's really the thing here. This has a very good cooling system that really never maxes out, meaning that you're not gonna wear out your components quite as quickly as other laptops, which really plays into the reliability of this laptop. And for that reason, I definitely recommend this laptop. But again, there's Amazon links below for the US, UK, Canada, and international links. But this was Type-C Tech Reviews. Hope you guys enjoyed it. This review definitely took quite a bit of time. It was my first laptop review, so go easy on me and put in the comments below if you want some other things to be tested, to be looked at. But this was Type-C Tech Reviews, and I'll see you guys in the next video.